So I'm playing through TBC Classic for the first time, and I have very much enjoyed it. And so far, we have done quite a lot. We've done all the Phase 1 raids and managed to get full Phase 1 base. We've done all the Phase 2 raids and managed to acquire some of the best gear in the game. But right now, we're kind of in the weekly reset loop. You know, raid reset, at least until some new stuff comes out in Phase 3. So naturally, that makes me want to have a second character to play. And so far, we have also leveled up a hunter and a paladin, both of which I thoroughly enjoyed. But, I don't know, they're missing something. They don't give me the same feeling that playing my druid gives me, and the only other time a class has felt as good was obviously on my first character, which was of course my Fury Warrior. So starting things off, we are going straight into the Steamvaults, and that's because we are starting this series at level 69. Just like all the other characters we had done so far, I was planning on doing a short leveling series for this character, you know, couple of videos long kind of thing, and I did. I had 2 videos recorded for this character already. However, the other day I was having a little hard drive clear out, you see where this is going, and I managed to delete literally the entire thing. And as you guys know, this isn't the first time I've done that. And to be honest, I was very close to just scrapping the entire thing, but I mean, we might as well just pretend nothing happened, right? So let me get you guys caught up a little bit, yeah? Well, to be honest, there really wasn't anything massively out of the ordinary with the leveling. I was mostly just chilling and reigniting my love for the class. As for gear, well, most of it is just random questing gear and stuff from leveling dungeons. However, at this point, I had started to pick up some pre-bis stuff, like the cleft hoof hide leggings, absolute classic, amazing stats, plus expertise, and a nice chunk of hit to help with getting us up to hit cap. I also splurged a little bit and bought us the fell leather gloves and the fell leather boots, both of which are pre-bis. And by the way, to buy these 2 and give them meta gems and enchants, it was a combined cost of just under 1,000 gold. Might not be my smartest purchase ever, but when have I been smart with my money? And well, that brings us to now, running Steamvaults for the first time for yet another piece of pre-bis gear, and that is the Helm of the Claw. And sure, it's not the craziest piece of gear I've ever seen, but for a quest reward that literally just wants you to clear the dungeon, yeah, it'll do. So like I said at the start, I really want a second character to play, and both Hunter and Paladin are great in their own ways, but Hunter just isn't really my kind of thing, and turns out our guild is already massively overfull on tanks. And part of the reason I wanted to play a prop Paladin was because I really have an itch for some big AoE pools, and prop Paladin definitely does that, but it's like you're slowly ticking away at the health of 25 mobs at once. But Fury Warrior is a whole other level. The reason I didn't end up leveling the Warrior first was because the idea of being capped at like 4 or 5 mobs at once sounded like it just wasn't really what I was looking for. But nah, the feeling you get when you charge into a pack of mobs, slamming sweeping strikes and pressing whirlwind, even just the sound of the cleave ability. Everything you do feels like it is absolutely smacking. You know, I really wish we could have done this from level 60. Could have shown you guys the slow progression into understanding the proper rotation, the slowly reigniting my love for this spec. You know, after having so much fun leveling this character again, I honestly don't know why I stopped playing it in vanilla. I mean, this is exactly what I was looking for. Turns out, all I really wanted from my old character was to turn my brain off and roll my face over the keyboard, and Fury Warrior is definitely that. It's also incredibly good at ripping threat. I mean, I main Feral Druid, I'm definitely familiar with ripping threat, but the thing I noticed about this class is that if there wasn't a Paladin tank, I basically wasn't allowed to do my rotation properly, and I had to resort to simply pressing Bloodthirst on cooldown. As for the run itself, well, this run did go very smoothly. Pretty solid group and very chill dudes, which despite the actual performance of the group, those are the best runs, right? As for the loot in this place, well, there's nothing massively important. Obviously our quest reward, but other than that, the only thing I might end up farming at some point is the Devil Shark Cape, which yes, is a tanking cloak, because if I want to actually get a raid spot, I might need to offer something more than a Fury Warrior with terrible gear. So we spent the next 5 minutes or so clearing up the trash outside of the final boss room, until we finally get on to the final boss, Warlord Calithresh, which is obviously a single target fight. And Fury Warrior in single target definitely is nowhere near as satisfying as AoE, but you know what? Even in single target, the pacing feels great, especially when you've got a Wind Fury totem. And just like everything else in this run, we were able to smoothly kill Calithresh, but unfortunately, no cloak dropped. But that does mean we have successfully cleared the dungeon. So I returned to the NPC out by the summoning stone and handed the quest in, and acquired us our technically pre-bis helmet. So with the Steamvaults now cleared and a piece of pre-base in hand, the next thing on our list of things to do is get attuned for the Black Morass, which means heading into the best dungeon in TBC, Old Hillsbrad. Yes, I did forget to hit record at the start, thank you for asking. And I mean, just look at that whirlwind. How can you say this isn't the most satisfying thing in this game? The one thing I did start to notice though, is that when Warrior is good, it is really good. However, sometimes you end up getting a string of just mess, and to be honest, I haven't decided yet if Warrior's highs outweigh its lows. As for the dungeon, well, again, loot-wise, there isn't actually anything we are after. All we cared about was getting the attunement done, where we have to find Thrall down in the basement and accept the quest that he is offering, which you kinda have to do anyway, if you intend on actually clearing the dungeon. Now, like I said earlier, this is by far my favourite dungeon in TBC, and that's because I love the time travelling stuff. I think it is a fantastic way for players to visualise old lore, and I kinda wish there was more done with it in this expansion. And let's be honest, the rest of this expansion is just so different to the regular MMO stuff. As one of you guys put it in a comment a while back, this is the Orcs in Space expansion. But this dungeon isn't like that. It's a nice refreshing break from the spacey theme, because we go back to the simple stuff, killing warriors and paladins and stuff like that. Granted, being ambushed by infinite dragonflight does kinda weirden it up a bit, but I still think it's cool nonetheless. Now thankfully we had once again managed to find ourselves a very competent group of players, because I know things can sometimes go a tad wrong at the very end. Because if I remember correctly, this ending part is a gauntlet and you don't really get any chances to replenish mana or anything. And sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming. Sadly for us, we had a paladin tank, which of course isn't the greatest at holding single target threat, and I ripped aggro and basically got one shot. Just the warrior life, I suppose. But of course, my death means absolutely nothing, and the group were able to get Epoch Hunter down. For his loot, he did drop the Ring of Valor, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is pretty solid for PvP. However, at the time, I really wasn't sure and I ended up just passing on it. But with that now done, I was able to hand the quest in at the Blood Elf NPC, and we are now attuned for the Black Morass. So with the attunement now done, I decided that there was no point in wasting any time and jumped straight into the Black Morass, since this is a very important dungeon for us. And it's important purely because of the Hourglass of the Unraveler. It is arguably one of the best pieces of normal dungeon loot in the game. If you take a look at the Fury Warrior BIS lists for Phase 2, the two best trinkets right now are the badge from AQ40 and Dragonspine Trophy, and it's very unlikely that we will ever be getting those. And the next best option after that is the Tsunami Talisman, and the Hourglass is basically that, but slightly worse. Now of course the unfortunate part is that the Black Morass is by far the worst dungeon in the expansion. I know, it's incredible. They've managed to put the best and worst dungeons literally right next to each other. I do however think that the whole time traveling thing is still cool. Again, I think it's good that players can visualize old parts of the lore. This one in particular is when Medivh is trying to open the dark portal, and the infinite dragonflights are obviously trying to stop him. But apparently, Medivh opening the dark portal prevents bigger and larger threats down the line, which is why we are here to stop them. Which is cool and all, but the way it's designed just is not it. It all takes place in one area, and 18 portals are going to open, and we literally just have to stand and kill them. And to top all of that off, the XP we are getting from one run is really bad. Like 1.5 bars per run bad. As for the trinkets, well, it comes from the second boss in the dungeon, Temporous. And I think I have some sort of PTSD from the heroic version of this boss. Lucky for us though, the normal version is of course far easier. So we get him down, no trinket. I'm starting to get deja vu from when we did this on the druid. The rest of the run did end up going very smoothly, since at this point in the dungeon, everyone was using their beacon items, which basically spawn in a giant friendly dragon that not only does more DPS than all of us combined, but also tanks the mob for us, until eventually we are confronted with the final boss, Aeonis. Now, at least in the normal version of this dungeon, Aeonis is a bit of a gear check for the tank and healer. I mean, I've tanked this dungeon myself, I know just how harsh it can really be. He just hits extremely hard. Plus he also stuns the party constantly, which usually ends pretty badly. But since we have a resto druid this time, the druid hots just like to do their thing. But of course, we get him down anyway, and he dropped a pretty nice pair of tanking legs. However, I didn't need on them, purely because I know that the Caverns of Time rep vendor does have a pair of legs which are far better. But of course, one dungeon run was not enough to satisfy me, so myself and the rest of the group agreed to stick around and farm the dungeon some more. Now, like I said earlier, the XP we were getting from doing this sucks. So I didn't want to spend too long just spamming this over and over again. But just like on the druid, I did end up going slightly feral for this piece of gear. I don't know, the idea of leveling with Abyss trinket equipped, I couldn't resist. Plus it would massively help with getting into heroic dungeon groups not too far down the line. Of course we didn't have any issues at all with clearing the dungeon, since the group was exactly the same as last time. And this was just another one of those groups where the chemistry was just great. We were just constantly talking and just having a good time. And that's what MMOs are about at the end of the day. You can't really beat it. But eventually, we do get on to killing Temporous, which was surprisingly looking quite iffy. The tank was getting absolutely slammed, but we did make a recovery and we were successful in taking him down. And guess what I saw drop on the second run? Not the trinket, of course, don't be silly. But we finish up the dungeon, and sadly this is where our group came to an end. But I wasn't done quite yet. So I brought the warlock with me and formed us a new group to run it with. And somehow, I managed to make the group almost the exact same composition. I mean, it worked the first time, so why wouldn't it work now? So I won't go into too much detail here because I don't want to bore you. The run went smoothly, the warlocks were absolutely pumping, and I was doing 150 DPS. Definitely a lot less satisfying than cleaving the entire gnome population at once. And of course, no trinket. But I was starting to get a little bit tired of this place, and to be honest, I was starting to become far more focused on just wanting to hit level 70 first. So I found myself another group and told myself this was it. One more run for now, and if it didn't drop, we would just have to come back later. So again, I won't waste too much time here. We get to Temporous and DPS him down, no trinket. But at the end of the run, everyone was saying how they wanted to go again, and you know, we're all here, we might as well do one more, right? Also, massive thanks to my friend Mustard Soup. He's been a big help to me over the past few months, and by that I mean he comes and tanks for me occasionally. But of course, we get Temporous down and no trinket. Well, that was that. We were unable to get the hourglass, and to be honest, I was really sick of this place at this point, but we will most certainly be returning in the near future. But for now, I just really needed to do something else for a bit. So now my goal was really just to hit level 70 as quick as possible. So I decided to head back in for a run of the Steamvaults. Not for anything specific, I just like this dungeon. It's pretty quick, large packs of mobs at once, and decent enough XP. And besides, we're going to have to farm out the reputation up to revered anyway. Obviously for the heroic attunement, but also for our best in slot head enchant, which is the Glyph of Ferocity, which would add 34 attack power and a 16 hit rating, which is absolutely insane for an enchant. Now obviously, since this was my first ever character, I was going into this kinda knowing what to expect. I was expecting there to be some differences from vanilla. You know, Hunter was completely different, and I'm assuming Paladin was wildly different too, but this mostly feels the same. There was of course some additions, primarily being the Victory Rush ability, which is basically just a free bloodthirst, so long as you've killed something within the last 20 seconds. But more importantly than that, Whirlwind now hits with both weapons instead of just your main hand. Which doesn't sound like much, but it does change gearing quite a bit. Because in vanilla, you would want a slow main hand and fast offhand, but now you want slow main hand, slow offhand, just to make everything hit for as much damage as possible. So basically what Blizzard did is they had a look at Fury Warrior from vanilla, the most broken spec in the game by a mile, and said, how can we make this even better? Which honestly I'm okay with, because this spec just grabs you by the balls. It is so massively addicting to play, which I know I've kinda said on all the other classes so far, but I'll be honest, I think I finally found my alt character for this expansion. As for the run itself, well, it was exactly as expected. Quick, smooth, and pretty chilled out. As for Calithresh's loot, he did drop the Gauntlets of the Bold and the Breastplate of the Righteous. Of course it drops on our second run on the Warrior, after it took me so long to get it on the Paladin. So at this point, we are getting really close to level 70. However, it was also extremely late and I wasn't able to find us another Steamvaults group, which means it is time for us to resort to the only other way that I know how to get XP, doing a few quests. And naturally, I immediately wanted to go to Nagrand, because it's Nagrand. But no, I decided to head over to a place that I have been eyeing up for a while now, Netherstorm, but more specifically, the Echo Domes. As you guys know, I am a huge fan of all of the natural aesthetics, and these things are so unbelievably good looking. They are basically massive domes made of arcane energy that were built to preserve the last remaining remnants of Netherstorm's wildlife. And whilst you're questing here, it does actually feel like that. You're going around slaying wild animals and probably picking up shit or something, but at the same time, you can still see the fell-scarred wasteland that is Netherstorm on the outside. And it's just such a unique feeling part of Outland, and I absolutely love it. And the quests are also exactly what you would want from it. Killing wildlife that's population has grown too out of control for the Consortium to handle, killing crocodiles and massively oversized mutated plants, and giant cats, and just doing general tasks around the domes for the Consortium, which is the exact type of quest that I love, because it's not some grand mission where you're trying to save the world or something like that. You are just a guy doing regular things. In fact, I enjoyed this area so much, I did start to question why we were killing all of the living things inside what is essentially a nature reserve. I mean, could you imagine if I went to Masai Mara and started stabbing lions? I imagine that would piss off a couple of people. But according to the quest, it has something to do with the dome itself and the arcane energy surrounding it. And it's basically causing the wildlife to grow too large too fast. Hence why we are killing a 3-story tall hydra. But of course the excitement did have to come to an end though, since I had managed to clear literally every quest inside of the dome, which then wanted me to go all the way up north to yet another dome. However, since that was quite a long journey, I decided to stop in between to complete this quest here, which I did end up getting a little confused on at first, since this quest literally just says destroy the inactive Fellwreather. But in order to do that, we had to first go around killing these, whatever these things are. But of course, once that was done, I did make the journey all the way up north and into Echo Dome Farfield, which was very similar to the first first dome, except this time it's more filled with dinosaurs rather than crocodiles and cats and stuff. Now luckily at this point we were insanely close to level 70, so I actually only had to do one single quest of killing a few raptors. And looking at the minimap, I had 3 turn-ins here, so I decided just to pray that it would be enough XP to tip us over into level 70. And turning the 3rd quest in, we hit level 70. And I would like to take this time to once again apologise for being so stupid and deleting half of my raw footage, because this was easily one of my favourites we have done so far, so it really is a shame. So now that we are level 70, it is of course time to start gearing up. However, if we take a look at the Fury Warrior pre-base list, there's a bit of a theme going on. Like 90% of our pre-base gear we can just buy from the auction house. There's a few cheaper ones to get, like the Rage Steel set, but then there's also a couple of more expensive ones, like the Vengeance Wrap. Now as you guys know, I'm horrifically irresponsible with my gold. And I know I say it quite a lot that I never have any gold, etc. But truth is, I do actually make quite a decent amount of gold every week. I make around 1500 or more by simply buying and selling Scrolls of Agility. And whenever I have a spare 30 minutes, I jump on and do 5 runs of Sethic Halls for Prismatic Shards. My issue is, I can never seem to hold on to it for longer than about a day because I keep making stupid financial decisions, like raiding every week or buying a tuxedo for my bank alt. Actually, you know what? That looks awesome. That was well worth it. Or buying the Vengeance Wrap and Red Belt of Battle for my fresh level 70 warrior alt. In the last video, I said I couldn't afford epic flying form. Yeah, this was a very big contributing factor as to why I couldn't. Also, I didn't mention it at all, but I was leveling blacksmithing the whole time, because apparently it's like the #1 most important thing to have as a Fury Warrior. So alongside my new belt and cloak, I went into debt to craft myself the Drake Fist Hammer, which is the first step in getting us our best in slot weapon. God, I hope I stick with this character this time. So with a couple of really nice pieces of gear in hand, I obviously wanted to test my new stuff out. And what better place than in a heroic dungeon? Ah, heroic slave pens, the go-to place for free badges in less than 15 minutes. To be honest, it was sheer coincidence that my guild just happened to be doing a run together and asked if I wanted to join, which obviously I said yes to. Now, if you know what the slave pens look like, you might notice that things look a little funky. And that's because at the time of recording this, the Midsummer Fire Festival was active, which I know sounds weird since this is clearly ice and cold themed. But with that event came a load of really cool stuff to get, which is including an entire boss in the slave pens. Really cool, right? Even cooler than that is the boss drops some loot that is genuinely really good. Primarily what we would want would be the Amulet of Bitter Hatred, which you might notice is just the Badge of Justice hit neck, but better. For the boss himself, well, he has more mechanics than the entire of Molten Core combined. For his first phase, we can't actually attack him, and he spawns in a load of ice elemental adds to attack us. And at the same time, he's sending spikes up out of the ground. And we've also got to not slip on the ice, which basically stuns you if you stand on it for too long. For phase 2, he stops doing all of what I just said, and he now becomes killable for a few seconds. And it was at this point that I realised I hadn't actually leveled any mace's skill yet. So my brand new mace that I just got was actually making me do less damage than before. So we did end up getting Ahun down, and for his loot, he dropped the Frost Scythe of Lord Ahun, which I do believe is basically best for all of casters now, plus it looks absolutely sick, but also the Hailstone Pendant, which is pretty tanky, which Talion said I could just have in case I had to off-tank in our raids. So with the excitement of the event boss now over, we of course continued the run like it was any other run. And loot-wise, this is actually our biggest heroic dungeon, obviously because of Badges of Justice and Primal Nethers, but also because we could get the Adamantine Chain of the Unbroken and the Midnight Leg Guards. The legs would still be nice, but the neck is pretty solid, even now in phase 2. So of course we did the regular slave pen stuff, jumping off of the bridge to skip like 5 packs of mobs, and also squeezing ourselves between these 2 rocks to once again skip a few packs of mobs. I think it's incredible that WoW players found a way to clear this dungeon by killing 2 packs of mobs total. Now unfortunately the primal nether for this run was hard reserved for our mage. That's actually why we were here. Can't complain at that. It's a free carry and you can't really ask for more. But we get Quagmire down and the midnight leg guards dropped, which of course I needed on, and we won. So despite having me deleted most of this series, at least now we can say this was a pretty damn good start to our brand new character. I hope you all enjoyed today's video because I enjoyed making it. Once again, I apologise for having deleted all of my raw footage. Like honestly, you should have heard this sigh when it happened. It's such a stupid mistake to make. But regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed it anyway, and will be looking forward to future videos on Fartinsniff. As for content, well, I do have a few more TBC videos planned out. We've got another Druid one soon. I've also got 2, almost 3 warrior videos, or potentially I might just combine 2 of them to make a big larger one, if you guys would maybe prefer that instead. I'll be honest, I've kind of been looking for something different. I mean, I love TBC and everything, but honestly right now we are in a bit of a content drought. I'm mostly just raiding and farming gold, which, you know, that's expected, and that's just how it is. But I've been seeing loads about this Project Ascension thing, and it looks really cool. Or has Blizzard already taken that down? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Anyway, I think that is enough yapping for today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.